The first time I realized my marriage might be unsalvageable wasn't when my husband moved into the guest room. It wasn't even when he slid a handwritten list across our kitchen table, like my sons were employees failing a performance review. It was the moment my 16-year-old stepsister, no, my husband's daughter, lunged across the living room at my son, and the entire house became a courtroom with no judge. I'm Grace. I'm 45 now. And I used to believe that if you loved people hard enough, patiently enough, you could stitch a new family together. I was wrong. That night, the air smelled like cold pizza and panic. 5 of us sat in a circle that didn't feel like a circle, more like a trap. My twin boys, Marcus and Tyler, sat shoulder to shoulder, knees bouncing in the same nervous rhythm they've had since they were little. My husband Adam sat too upright, jaw clenched like he'd already decided the verdict. Nicole, his daughter, kept wiping her face, tears appearing and disappearing like a switch she could control. And me? I sat there with my hands folded so tightly my fingers went numb, trying to keep my voice steady like a woman who had already survived the worst thing life could do. Because my sons already lost their father years ago. Cancer doesn't just take a person, it leaves a crater. Marcus and Tyler were 8 when they watched that hospital monitor go flat. Ever since, once a month, it's been our tradition. Just the 3 of us. A drive, a hike, burgers, and an arcade. One day where grief doesn't get to rewrite our bond. Adam promised he understood that before he ever put a ring on my finger. But 4 years into our marriage, he looked me in the eye and demanded I stop. He said, "If you don't include Nicole every time, you're teaching the boys to treat her like she's nothing." I remember the way the word nothing hit my chest. Heavy, sharp, unfair. Because the truth was, Adam barely showed up for any of the kids. And when I finally tried to uncover what was really happening under my roof, I didn't find a simple, blended family problem. I found lies, manipulation, boundaries crossed, and a marriage that would rather blame my sons than admit his own failure as a parent. Before Adam ever asked me to be his wife, I made him one promise and one warning. The promise was simple. My sons would always know they came first. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because they'd already had one parent ripped out of their lives. They didn't need to lose the remaining one to fairness performed for other people. The warning was even simpler. Don't marry into grief if you plan to compete with it. Adam smiled like he understood. Back then, I wanted to believe him. I was 40 when I met him, older than the version of myself who still thought love was a magical fix. At that point in my life, I was practical, grounded, the kind of woman who kept a calendar with color-coded school schedules, who remembered every allergy, every permission slip, every "Mom, I need poster board by tomorrow" crisis. Marcus and Tyler were 13 then, tall, lanky, still half boy, half man, with the same eyes as their father. Their dad, Daniel, had died 5 years earlier. 2 brutal years of treatment, false hope, then the slow goodbye you can't prepare children for, no matter how gently you try. I still remember the last night, the fluorescent hospital light, the way Tyler kept trying to make his dad laugh through tears, the way Marcus didn't cry at all until the moment the nurse touched my shoulder and said, "I'm so sorry." After that, I didn't date, not because I was noble, because I was empty. The boys and I survived by making our own small rituals, and the biggest one became our monthly day, just us 3. Not a family outing, not a step-parent bonding activity, just a promise that no matter what else changed, we didn't. Around that time, my older brother Kevin moved closer. Kevin, steady, warm, unflappable. He didn't have kids of his own, but he stepped into our chaos like he'd been waiting his whole life. He took the boys fishing, showed up at soccer games when I got stuck at work, taught them how to cook a real meal instead of living on cereal and stubbornness. Kevin was my safety net when I didn't want to admit I needed one. Then, about 5 years ago, I went to a work conference in Portland. I wasn't looking for romance. I was looking for strong coffee, a decent keynote speaker, and a hotel bed I didn't have to share with teenage boy laundry. Adam was there too. Same industry, different company, competitor technically, but he had that easy charm people mistake for emotional maturity. He made me laugh in a way I hadn't laughed in years, like my lungs remembered what they were for. We exchanged numbers, texted after the conference. Small things at first, memes. How did your presentation go? This client is driving me insane. It felt harmless. Adam was a single dad. His daughter Nicole was 13 then. He'd never been married. Nicole's mother had signed away her rights when Nicole was a baby and moved out of state. He framed it like he'd been doing it all alone. And I believed him, because I recognized the tiredness in his voice, the way he talked about responsibility like it was a permanent weight. When we started dating, I moved slow. I watched how he handled stress, how he spoke about his child, how he reacted when plans changed. I didn't want passion. I wanted stability. 6 months in, I introduced him to Marcus and Tyler, and Nicole came along too. At first, it looked workable. Aquarium trips, barbecues, board games, where everyone pretended not to care who won. Nothing forced, nothing dramatic. The kids weren't instantly close, but they weren't hostile either. When Adam proposed 2 years later, my sons had one request. Marcus said it quietly, like he was afraid asking would make him sound selfish. "Mom, can we still do our monthly days? Just us?" Tyler nodded beside him, eyes fixed on the floor. I looked at Adam. He squeezed my hand and said, "Of course, I get it." We also made another agreement, one Adam insisted on, actually. He said, "You'll always be their mom. I'll always be Nicole's dad. Let's not force the parenting thing. We can be friendly, supportive, but we each handle our own kid." It sounded reasonable, even respectful. So we married. And for the first 4 years, I kept every promise I made. I didn't realize Adam was quietly collecting resentment like receipts. The cracks didn't appear all at once. They showed up in small, dismissible moments, the kind you brush off because blended families are supposed to be messy. At first, it was Adam making comments that felt harmless on the surface but carried an edge underneath. "Must be nice," he'd say casually, watching me lace my sneakers. "You and the boys always have these special days." Or, "Nicole notices things more than you think," when I mentioned our monthly outings in passing. I'd respond gently every time. I reminded him that he agreed to this, that the boys needed consistency, that I wasn't excluding Nicole from our lives. I went to her school plays, helped her choose a laptop for classes, drove her and her friends to the mall without complaint. But Adam never seemed satisfied. What bothered me more was what he didn't do. He was physically present in the house, sure, ate dinner with us, asked surface-level questions, but he didn't show up emotionally for any of the kids. He didn't go to Marcus and Tyler's soccer games, didn't ask how school was beyond fine, didn't know Tyler had switched electives or that Marcus had been struggling in math. And it wasn't just my sons. Nicole's last school play was in October. I sat in the audience, clapping until my hands hurt. Adam sent his apologies through text, work dinner, unavoidable. Marcus had a championship game in September. I stood in the cold with other parents, coffee cooling in my hands. Adam didn't come, said traffic would have been a nightmare. At some point, I realized something unsettling. Adam wasn't actually parenting. He was observing and resenting. The kids, meanwhile, stayed in their own lanes. Marcus and Tyler were inseparable. Same soccer team, same classes, same friends. They shared a shorthand language that came from surviving the same loss, the same fear, the same childhood trauma. Nicole lived a parallel life. Different interests, different friends, different emotional orbit. Nicole and Tyler mostly ignored each other. Nicole and Marcus, that was different. They didn't fight openly, but the tension was unmistakable. A look held a beat too long at the dinner table, a muttered comment just quiet enough to pretend it hadn't happened. Passive-aggressive silences thick enough to choke on. I noticed it, of course. But every time I tried to gently intervene, "Hey, let's be respectful. Let's keep things civil," Adam waved it off. "Teenagers," he'd say. "They'll work it out." Then, about a month before everything exploded, Adam asked me to sit down. He'd written notes. Actual notes. He laid them out on the table like evidence. "Marcus refuses to give Nicole rides," he said, even though he has a car. "Tyler won't let her use his Nintendo Switch. The boys took the upstairs bedrooms when we moved, and Nicole got stuck near the laundry room. And last year, Marcus went to a concert with Tyler and their friends. Nicole wasn't invited. Each item came with an accusation he didn't say outright, but didn't need to. "Your sons are the problem." I listened. I didn't interrupt. When he finished, I took a breath and reminded him of our agreement. I reminded him that my sons had boundaries, not obligations. I reminded him that Nicole had never asked me to treat her like my biological child, and that I wasn't trying to replace her father. Then I said something that changed the temperature in the room. "Adam, when was the last time you planned something just for Nicole?" He went still. Defensive. This isn't about me. But it was. Because Adam wasn't asking me to build a family. He was asking me to erase grief, rewrite promises, and absorb responsibility he didn't want to carry himself. And underneath it all, something darker was growing. Quiet, unresolved, and already dangerous. I just didn't know yet how far it had gone. The conversation that finally shattered the illusion didn't happen in a scream. It happened in a low, controlled tone that scared me more than yelling ever could. Adam sat across from me at the kitchen table, arms crossed, eyes fixed on a point just over my shoulder, like he'd already decided I was the enemy. "This can't continue," he said. "You're teaching the boys that Nicole doesn't matter." I felt my chest tighten. "What exactly do you want me to change?" I asked carefully. He didn't hesitate. "I want you to stop the monthly outings, or at least include Nicole every single time. And I want you to start treating her exactly like Marcus and Tyler." There it was. Not a suggestion. A demand. I stared at him, waiting for the part where he acknowledged our agreement, our conversations, the years of promises we'd both made. It never came. "No," I said. The word surprised even me, how calm it sounded. Adam's head snapped up. "Excuse me? I'm not breaking a promise to my sons," I said. "They lost their father. That time is about stability, not exclusion." He leaned forward. "So you're admitting you're playing favorites." I felt something crack inside me then, not loudly, but deeply. "Adam," I said slowly, "you barely show up for any of the kids. You don't go to their games. You don't plan time with Nicole. You don't ask about their lives. But you're blaming me." His face flushed. "This isn't about my parenting." "It is," I said, "because if Nicole feels like an outsider, that's not because I take my sons out once a month." He stood up so abruptly his chair scraped against the floor. "You're throwing our agreement in my face," he snapped. "Things are different now. We're a family." "We were a family when we made that agreement," I shot back, "and you agreed to it just like I did." He stormed out of the kitchen that night and slept in the guest room. The house felt wrong after that, like something sour had seeped into the walls. Marcus and Tyler noticed immediately. They didn't ask questions outright, but I caught them exchanging looks, lowering their voices, hovering near me in that way kids do when they sense instability but don't know how to name it. Nicole got quieter too. She stopped bringing friends over, stopped lingering in shared spaces. She watched me more, eyes sharp, unreadable. Adam started giving me looks across the dinner table, expectant, waiting for me to apologize, waiting for me to cave. I didn't. A week later, Adam left for a weekend conference, and something in me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I realized I didn't actually know what was happening inside my own house. So I decided to talk to the kids, separately, honestly. No punishments, no consequences, just the truth. I started with Tyler because he'd always been the one who talked first, who processed out loud. He shrugged when I asked how things were with Nicole. "It's fine," he said. I waited. He avoided my eyes. When I asked if Nicole had ever made him uncomfortable, he went silent, not stubborn, afraid. "I don't want to talk about it," he said finally. My stomach dropped. Next, I spoke to Nicole. She broke down immediately, crying so hard she could barely get words out. She said Marcus and Tyler hated her, that they whispered about her, that they excluded her on purpose, that she tried so hard to be their sister and they rejected her again and again. Then she said something that made my chest ache. "They have a mom who actually cares," she sobbed, "and I'm stuck with one who's never around." I felt anger rise, not at her, but at Adam. When I spoke to Marcus last, everything changed. He didn't cry. He got angry. He told me Nicole followed them at school, took things from their rooms, lied to Adam about situations that never happened. And then he said the sentence that turned my blood cold. "She won't leave Tyler alone." He told me about the touching, the comments, the way Tyler kept telling her to stop. That's when I understood why they'd asked for locks on their doors, why they moved upstairs, why the tension had been growing for over a year. And suddenly, Adam's list made sense, not as concern, but as deflection. When Adam came home, I knew what I had to do. I called for a family meeting, and what happened next destroyed everything we had left. The family meeting didn't feel like a conversation. It felt like a controlled demolition. We sat in the living room, 5 people who shared a house but not a reality. Adam looked almost smug at first, like he believed this was the moment I'd finally admit I was wrong and promise to do better. I told everyone the rules. No interruptions. Everyone speaks. No one gets punished for telling the truth. Adam nodded. Nicole clutched a tissue. Marcus and Tyler sat rigid, back straight, eyes forward. I asked Nicole to go first. She repeated what she'd told me earlier, how excluded she felt, how lonely, how she believed Marcus and Tyler went out of their way to make her feel unwelcome. She spoke well, too well. Adam nodded along, occasionally glancing at me like, "See?" When she finished, I thanked her and turned to Marcus. That's when the room shifted. Marcus didn't hesitate. He laid everything out, calm at first, then sharper. The following at school, the things going missing, the lies, the manipulation, the boundary crossing with Tyler. Nicole's face flushed red instantly. She denied it, loudly, completely. Adam jumped in before I could say a word. "That's ridiculous," he said. "Nicole would never do that." Tyler spoke then. His voice shook, but he didn't stop. "She did," he said. 2 weeks ago, during a movie." Adam froze. Nicole cried harder, said Tyler was exaggerating, said she barely touched him, said he was dramatic. Marcus snapped. "You always do this," he shouted. "You lie and then play the victim." Nicole screamed back that all she ever wanted was a family. Then Marcus said something he shouldn't have. "At least our dad loved us," he said. "Yours took one look at you and walked away." The room exploded. Nicole lunged. I stood up, heart in my throat, but Tyler was faster. He stepped between them and caught her wrist as she tried to slap Marcus. She stumbled back, tripped over the coffee table, and hit her head against the couch. There was blood. Not much, but enough. Nicole screamed. Adam screamed louder. He pointed at Tyler, like he'd just found proof of everything he believed. "She's calling the police," he yelled. "You raised a violent thug." I stepped between him and my son. "If you call the police," I said evenly, "I will tell them exactly what happened." Adam told me to get my boys out of his sight. I told him it was my house. My name was on the deed. If anyone was leaving, it wasn't my children. An hour later, Adam came downstairs with suitcases. He said he was taking Nicole to his sister's and that I'd be hearing from his lawyer. When the door slammed behind them, the house went silent. Too silent. Marcus and Tyler emerged from their rooms slowly. No one knew what to say. I ordered pizza. We ate without tasting it. That night, Marcus apologized for what he'd said. Tyler apologized for not telling me sooner. I told both of them the same thing. "You did nothing wrong by protecting yourself." But inside I was shaking, because I knew this wasn't over. And because the man I married hadn't just failed my sons. He'd chosen denial over safety. And that was something I could never forgive. I thought the worst part would be the silence after Adam and Nicole left. I was wrong. The silence lasted less than 24 hours before it was replaced by something far more corrosive: accusations. Adam didn't call to talk. He texted, short, sharp, loaded. "You destroyed my family. Nicole is traumatized because of your sons. You chose them over us." I didn't respond. I was too busy watching Marcus pace his room like a caged animal, too busy noticing Tyler flinch every time his phone buzzed, too busy trying to hold together a household that felt like it had been through an earthquake. The next day, Adam texted again. This time it was logistics. He wanted to come collect the rest of his and Nicole's belongings. I told him yes, and made sure Marcus and Tyler were out of the house when he came. He arrived with his sister. They packed quickly, efficiently, like this was a business transaction, not the collapse of a marriage. Adam didn't look at me once. 2 hours later, they were gone. And I thought, maybe that's it. Then the lawyers got involved. 2 weeks later, divorce papers arrived. Adam had filed first. I sat at my kitchen table reading them, the words blurring together until one line made my breath hitch. He was claiming Marcus and Tyler created a hostile environment for Nicole, and that I enabled it. He wanted part of the house, spousal support. He even listed my monthly outings with my sons as deliberate exclusion. I felt physically sick. I hired a lawyer that same day. She read everything carefully, tapping her pen against the desk. "The house claim is weak," she said. "There's a prenup. It's very clear." "And the rest?" I asked. She sighed, messy, but not strong. The legal battle was one thing. What Adam did outside the courtroom was worse. He started calling my workplace, my colleagues, people I'd worked with for years. He told them I was abusive, that I poisoned my sons against women, that I let them gang up on a vulnerable teenage girl. My boss called me into her office, concerned but fair. I explained everything, calmly, honestly. She believed me. Not everyone did. Then Kevin called. My brother's voice was tight with anger. "Adam left me a voicemail," he said, "saying you're raising misogynists." I told Kevin everything. Every detail. He listened without interrupting. Then he said, "If he contacts me again, I'll handle it." Things escalated again, this time at school. Nicole went to the same high school as Marcus and Tyler, and suddenly rumors started spreading. That Tyler assaulted her, that the family meeting turned violent, that the boys were dangerous. Tyler came home one afternoon pale and furious. "People are talking," he said. "They're asking questions." My lawyer advised silence. "Anything you say can be twisted," she warned. "Until this is resolved, protect your kids by saying nothing." I went to the school anyway. Sat across from the principal and laid out a timeline. She listened carefully. "I can't control what students say outside of school," she said gently, "but we'll make staff aware." Then she suggested something that broke my heart. "Has Tyler considered switching schools?" He refused. Marcus said if Tyler went, he'd go too. Neither of them wanted to leave. The rumors didn't just stay at school. Adam started posting online. Not naming me, but close enough. Some men only care about their biological children. Single motherhood is lonely when people betray you. His friends flooded the comments with sympathy. I didn't respond. Marcus did. With his fists. A boy at school called Tyler a liar. Marcus threw the first punch. He got suspended for 3 days. I picked him up from the principal's office and drove home in silence. When we got inside, Marcus went to his room and punched a hole in the wall. Didn't say a word. Tyler stopped going to soccer practice. His coach called me, worried. I just can't focus, Tyler said quietly. Marcus kept going, but his performance dropped. Everyone was unraveling. Then Adam's sister called me. She asked to meet for coffee. When she sat down, she looked exhausted. She told me Nicole had been living with her, that things weren't going well, that Nicole lied about small things. Dinner, comments, imagined slights. Then she told me something that made my skin crawl. She'd woken up one night and found Nicole standing in the doorway of her teenage son's bedroom, just watching. Nicole claimed she was sleepwalking. Adam's sister didn't believe her. She told me she'd asked Adam to find somewhere else for Nicole to stay, that Adam accused her of betrayal. And then she said, I think your sons were telling the truth. She agreed to give a statement to my lawyer. When I told my lawyer, she smiled for the first time in weeks. This helps, she said. But even as the legal tide started to turn, I could see the cost. My sons were exhausted, hurt, older than they should have been. And I knew, whatever happened next, there was no going back. There's a moment in every long collapse when the adrenaline runs out. When you're no longer reacting, just enduring. That's where I broke. It wasn't during the court filings. It wasn't when Adam tried to smear me at work. It wasn't even when Marcus got suspended or Tyler quit soccer. It was a Tuesday night. Nothing dramatic, no shouting, no phone calls. Just the three of us sitting at the dinner table with plates that had gone cold. Marcus pushed his food around without eating. Tyler stared at his phone, scrolling but not really seeing anything. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence like a bad joke. I looked at them, my boys, who used to argue over the last slice of pizza, who used to laugh so loudly during our monthly trips that strangers smiled at us, and I felt an overwhelming, crushing guilt. Not because I chose them, but because I didn't protect them sooner. That night, after they went to bed, I sat on the bathroom floor and cried into a towel so they wouldn't hear me. I replayed every moment. Every time Marcus rolled his eyes at Nicole and I assumed it was teenage attitude. Every time Tyler avoided the living room and I told myself he just needed space. Every time Adam brushed off concerns and I let it go to keep the peace. I had built my life around keeping my sons safe after their father died. And somehow, danger had crept into our home anyway. That realization hollowed me out. The next day, Marcus didn't get out of bed. I checked on him before work and found him staring at the ceiling, eyes red-rimmed. I'm tired, he said. Not sleepy. Tired. Tyler stopped eating lunch at school. Kevin noticed it first when he picked the boys up for fishing and Tyler barely touched his sandwich. Kevin pulled me aside later. They're holding it together for you, he said gently, but they're not okay. That night, Tyler finally spoke. I feel like everyone thinks I'm a monster, he said quietly, like I did something wrong just by existing. My chest cracked open. I told him the truth. That lie will not define you. But even as I said it, I didn't fully believe the world would be fair. The court date loomed closer. Adam's messages got angrier, then quieter, then smug. My lawyer says this will be easy. You could have avoided all of this. I stopped reading them. The house felt haunted. Every room held echoes of arguments, slammed doors, fear. I realized I was flinching at sounds. A dropped fork, a car door outside, my phone vibrating. I wasn't sleeping. And worst of all, I started questioning myself. What if I really did choose wrong? What if loving my son so fiercely blinded me? What if this is my fault? That's when I knew I'd hit bottom. Because questioning your children's worth, even for a second, is how you lose yourself. I called Kevin. I don't know how to do this anymore, I said. He didn't offer solutions. He just said, come over. That weekend, the boys and I went fishing with him. No pressure, no talking unless they wanted to. We sat by the water, the air cool and quiet. At one point, Tyler laughed, just once, when Marcus nearly dropped his rod into the lake. It was a small sound, but it felt like oxygen. Driving home, I realized something crucial. Adam wasn't breaking us. The situation was, and I didn't have to let it. I couldn't control the court. I couldn't control lies. But I could control one thing, what happened next. And I knew, deep in my bones, that I was done trying to save a marriage that demanded my son's silence as the price of peace. The turning point didn't arrive with a dramatic confession or a sudden victory. It came quietly, wrapped in paperwork, patience, and the slow return of my spine. Adam's sister submitted her written statement to my lawyer 2 days before the preliminary hearing. I read it alone, sitting at my kitchen counter, coffee untouched beside me. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't editorialize. She simply described what she saw. The lies about dinner, the false accusations about inappropriate comments. The night she found Nicole standing in her son's doorway, watching him sleep. The claim of sleepwalking she didn't believe. When I finished reading, my hands were shaking, but not from fear. From clarity. Because for the first time since this nightmare began, someone who wasn't me had put the truth on record. Not emotionally, legally. My lawyer was careful not to promise anything. But she did say one thing that mattered. This changes the tone of the case. The hearing itself was procedural, dry, formal, anticlimactic compared to the chaos we'd lived through. Adam sat across the room from me, not looking at my sons, not looking at me. His confidence had thinned. I could see it in the way he fidgeted, in the way his lawyer whispered to him more than once. When my lawyer presented the prenup, the judge barely blinked. Clear, enforceable. When Adam's lawyer tried to frame my monthly outings as emotional abuse, the judge raised an eyebrow. Once a month, she asked, with children who lost a parent? That was the moment I stopped holding my breath. Outside the courtroom, Adam didn't confront me, didn't yell, didn't accuse. He looked small, and for the first time I felt nothing. Not anger. Not satisfaction, just distance. The real turning point, though, happened at home that night. Marcus knocked on my bedroom door after dinner. He stood there awkwardly, hands shoved into his hoodie pockets. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner," he said. Tyler hovered behind him, nodding. I pulled them into a hug that felt like the first real breath I'd taken in months. "You didn't fail me," I said. "I failed to see it fast enough." They shook their heads in unison. "No," Tyler said quietly. "You listened when it mattered." And that was it. That was the moment I stopped asking myself, what if? Because love doesn't mean never making mistakes. It means correcting course without hesitation once the truth is clear. From that point on, I changed how I moved through the world. I stopped explaining myself to people who had already decided I was wrong. I blocked Adam's number. All communication went through lawyers. I met with Marcus's school counselor and set up support sessions. I talked to Tyler's coach honestly, not about rumors, but about pressure. He welcomed Tyler back when he was ready. No expectations. No punishment. We reinstated our monthly outings, not as an escape, but as a reminder. One afternoon at the coast, Marcus skipped stones across the water. Tyler leaned against my shoulder. The wind smelled like salt and possibility. For the first time in a long time, the tension wasn't leading us anymore. We were. I also made a decision I hadn't admitted to myself yet. The house. The house held too many echoes. Too many raised voices. Too many memories of trying to keep peace at the cost of safety. I put it on the market. When I told the boys, Marcus surprised me. "Good," he said. "It never really felt like home." We found a smaller place closer to their school. Each boy would have his own room. There was a garage where I could finally set up the workshop I'd always postponed for someday. I realized then this wasn't just an ending. It was a reclamation. Adam had tried to make me choose between marriage and motherhood, between harmony and truth. But the truth was, the choice had always been clear, and I finally stopped apologizing for it. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came in waves, some quiet, some loud, but every one of them landed exactly where it belonged. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks after the hearing. Adam lost. On the house, on spousal support, on the narrative he'd been trying to sell. The judge cited the prenup as clear and enforceable. No ambiguity, no sympathy. When Adam's lawyer attempted one last time to frame me as emotionally abusive, my lawyer calmly submitted text messages, emails, and Adam's own contradictions. The judge didn't even ask questions. She just nodded. Adam didn't look at me when it was over. He walked out with his shoulders hunched, like a man who'd finally realized that shouting the loudest doesn't make you right. Later that night, he sent me a long email, pages of it. He said I'd ruined his life, that I'd destroyed his daughter's future, that my sons were cruel and heartless, that he hoped I was happy now that I'd gotten what I wanted. I didn't respond. I saved the email. Then I deleted it from my mind. The social consequences took longer. Some people never apologized. A few coworkers avoided eye contact for weeks before awkwardly returning to normal. Others surprised me. Quiet messages, late apologies, admissions that they'd believed the wrong story. I didn't hold grudges, but I didn't forget either. At school, the rumors faded the way all lies eventually do, unevenly. Some kids still whispered, but most moved on. Nicole transferred schools in January. I don't know if it was her choice or Adam's. I only know the relief in my son's shoulders when they found out. Marcus started sleeping again. Tyler went back to soccer practice. Not to prove anything, just because he missed the field. Kevin came by more often. He took the boys fishing again. One night over dinner, he said something I didn't realize I needed to hear. I never liked Adam, he admitted. I just didn't think it was my place. I laughed, softly, bitterly. Turns out, I said, it was my place all along. Marcus still had moments of anger. Tyler still had moments of withdrawal. Trauma doesn't evaporate because the threat leaves, but it loosens its grip. One evening, Marcus told me he saw Adam at the grocery store. He didn't even look at me, he said. I asked how that made him feel. He shrugged. Honestly, relieved. That answer told me everything. The house sold quickly. On the last night before we moved, I walked through the empty rooms alone. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I thanked the walls silently, for shelter, for lessons, for endings. Our new place was smaller, quieter, closer to everything that mattered. On move-in night, we sat on the floor eating takeout, surrounded by boxes. Tyler leaned back against the couch and said, "This already feels better." Marcus nodded. Later, when I was tucking them in like I used to when they were little, something they pretended not to need anymore, Marcus asked a question that caught me off guard. "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" I paused. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I'm not thinking about it." He exchanged a look with Tyler. "Good," Marcus said. "We kind of liked it better when it was just us." Tyler smiled. And I understood something then that took me years to accept. Some families aren't meant to be expanded. They're meant to be protected. Adam wanted optics, control, validation. What he lost wasn't a wife. It was the illusion that he could outsource responsibility and still demand authority. The truth didn't punish him. It simply stopped covering for him. And as for me, I didn't win. I walked away intact. It's strange how peace doesn't announce itself. There's no music swell, no dramatic relief. It just arrives, quietly. One morning, I realized I'd slept through the night without waking to check my phone. Another day, I noticed laughter in the kitchen again. Real laughter, not the forced kind we'd been surviving on. Marcus started talking about college. Tyler started talking about summer tournaments. And I started breathing like someone who no longer lived in defense mode. I don't regret standing up for my sons. Not once. I regret the time I spent doubting myself because someone else refused to take responsibility. I regret believing that compromise meant sacrificing safety. But I also learned something vital. Love is not measured by how much you can endure. It's measured by what you refuse to allow. I used to think being a good wife meant being flexible, understanding, patient. Now I know being a good mother and a good human means being decisive when the line is crossed. The promise I made to my sons wasn't just about monthly outings. It was about showing them what protection looks like, what boundaries look like, what self-respect looks like. We still do our monthly days. They're quieter now, less frantic, more reflective. Sometimes we just drive. Sometimes we sit by the water. Sometimes we say nothing at all. And that's enough. As for Adam, I don't hate him. Hate would mean he still matters in that way. What I feel instead is clarity. He showed me who he was when things got hard, and I believed him. If there's a lesson in all of this, for anyone watching, listening, wondering if they're being unreasonable, it's this. Protecting your children is never cruelty. Keeping your promises is never selfish. And walking away from a broken system is not failure, it's survival. Our story doesn't end with a new romance or a tidy bow. It ends with something better. A family that chose truth over comfort. And a woman who finally trusted herself enough to stop apologizing for it.